Alexander Pope writes on Shakespeare, his criticism. Alexander Pope says, the poetry of Shakespeare was inspiration indeed. He is not so much an imitator as an instrument of nature, and it is not so just to say that he speaks from her as that she speaks through him. His characters are so much nature herself that it is a sort of injury to call them by so distant a name as copies of her. Those of other poets have a constant resemblance which shows that they received them from one another and were but multipliers of the same image. Each picture, like a mock rainbow, is but the reflection of a reflection. But every single character in Shakespeare is as much as an individual as those in life itself. It is as impossible to find any two alike, and such as from their relation or affinity in any respect appear most to be twins, will upon comparison be found remarkably distinct. To this life and variety of character, we must add the wonderful preservation of it, which is such throughout his plays that had all the speeches been printed without the very names of the persons, I believe one might have applied them with certainty to every speaker. The power over our passions was never possessed in a more eminent degree or displayed in so different instances. How astonishing it is again that the passions directly opposite to this, laughter and spleen, are no less at his command. That he is not more a master of the great than of the ridiculous in human nature, of our noblest tenderness than of our vainest foibles, of our strongest emotions than of our idlest sensations. Nor does he only excel in the passions, in the coolness of reflection and reasoning. He is full of admirable. His sentiments are not only in general the most pertinent and judicious upon every subject, but by a talent very peculiar, something between penetration and felicity. He hits upon that particular point on which the bent of each argument turns, or the force of each motive depends. It must be owned that with all these great excellencies, he has almost as great defects as he has certainly written better, so he has perhaps written worse than any other. But I think I can, in some measure, account for these defects from several causes and accidents, without which it is hard to imagine that so large and so enlightened mind could ever have been susceptible of them. It must be allowed that stage poetry of all other is more particularly leveled to please the populace, and its success more immediately depending upon the common suffrage. One cannot therefore wonder if Shakespeare, having at his first appearance no other aim in his writings than to procure a subsistence, directed his endeavors solely to hit the taste and humor that then prevailed. The audience was generally composed of the meaner sort of people, and therefore the images of life were to be drawn from those of their own rank. Accordingly, we find that not our authors only, but almost all the old comedies have their scene among tradesmen, and even their historical plays strictly follow the common old stories of vulgar traditions of that kind of people. In tragedy, nothing was so sure to surprise and cause admiration as the most strange, unexpected, and consequently most unnatural events and incidents, the most exaggerated thoughts, the most verbose and bombast expression, the most pompous rhymes and thundering versification. In comedy, nothing was so sure to please as mean buffoonery, vile ribaldry, and unmannerly jests of fools and clowns. To judge, therefore, of Shakespeare by Aristotle's rules is like trying a man by the laws of one country who acted under those of another. He wrote to the people and read it read at first without patronage from the better sort, and therefore without aims of pleasing them, without assistance or advice from the learned, as without the advantage of education or acquaintance among them. Another cause, and no less strong than the former, may be deducted from our may be deduced from our author's being a player and forming himself first upon the judgments of that body of men whereof he was a member. They have ever had a standard to themselves upon other principles than those of Aristotle. As they live by the majority, they know no rule but that of pleasing the present humor and complying with the wit in fashion, a consideration which brings all their judgment to a short point. Players are just such judges of what is right as tailors are of what is graceful, and in this view, it will be but fair to allow that most of our author's faults are less to be ascribed to his wrong judgment as a poet than to his right judgment as a player.